Alright, MA Marignon, turn 75. It should be 5 or 6 turns and we can win this game in theory. We finished research in Evocation 9. This is mostly for Flames from the Sky. There could be some other useful spells in there, I don't recall offhand. Next we're doing Thaumaturgy. In theory we're going to run it up to 9, I think, for Astral Travel, but hopefully we'll not need that spell. We bring in a Harbinger, and this is going to get added to that army that will be taking that throne that Agartha currently controls, but is going to have to fight a bunch of Aryu's forces in all likelihood. We bring in our Archangel, mostly for throne claiming. Also may need to help us actually hold or retake that throne, depending on how Magic Phase battles go in a few turns from now. We bring in another werewolf somewhere, another lich somewhere, another vampire somewhere. We are trying to spread these out a little bit, so we kind of have like liches and vampires moving more south, like to Mictlan and some of the other thrones. One of the thrones that we've held for a while that's in the Well of Pestilence, we don't really have a great game plan in terms of defending that. We do have a good amount of human mages nearby, but it would be nice to get some undead immortals that was parked there. We also cast Eternal Pyre, which was cast successfully. That's nice, so we'll have to see if that gets knocked down in coming turns. It's probably not super necessary, and maybe even a bit questionable, right? If we're planning on winning in 5 or 6 turns, is this even going to pay us back? I do not remember how many gems I spent on it, so I don't actually have the answer to that question. I think we'll at least come close to breaking even, but of course, things often don't go to plan. So just because we hope that we're going to win in 6 turns or so doesn't mean that that's necessarily going to happen. And if it doesn't happen, we probably will need those extra fire gems. So probably still worthwhile, even if it ends up not being completely efficient. That's like one of those nice problems to have. We get Magic Phase attacked. This is a golem from Aryu, I think. There we go. Yes, this is definitely a golem for Aryu. We've probably seen this guy. I feel like, is this the one with the armor negating dagger? Yeah. So yeah, kind of interesting kit, fairly basic and relatively cheap in terms of not filling out all the slots. This just allows them to teleport. The Vine Shield makes it very unlikely that Province Defense is going to deal with them. And the Dusk Dagger is actually kind of a nice anti-elite pick because it's armor negating and then also will cause bleeding. So I kind of like it. At first when I saw this kit, it's weird. It's not what I would call normal kit, I feel like, but it's going to be good at taking out it's going to be good enough at taking out Province Defense while still being pretty dangerous against any answers that get Magic Phased in against it. Barbarians are pretty dangerous, but he can body Ethereal himself. Yeah, there's no healing on him though. So here I was complimenting this kit, and we did PD dump this a bit. Not all that much. Yeah, we did actually get him. So Barbarians, super dangerous. And I guess Vine Shield, not quite enough. I actually really thought between the Body Ethereal, the Astral Shield, and the Vine Shield, that would be enough against the low magic resistance Barbarians. But it really does kind of highlight how important regeneration is on thugs, because it's very, very difficult to prevent some chip damage from coming through sometimes, just the nature of the exploding die rolls. So that works out for us and is really nice. That's a super useful win for us. These are our horrors, also coming from a golem. Well, coming from a legendary item that's on a golem. Not a lot of province defense here. Interesting. Actually, this is Ermor's old capital, middle-age Ermor, so there's probably not a lot of population here. And you do need population in order to set up province defense. So that very well could be the maximum number of province defense, that is actually possible to put in Ermor. But this does work out for us. Hopefully we have a stealthy unit moving in to capture it. We do a little more site searching, which doesn't work out for us. We do just a tiny bit of blood hunting. We are trying to expand that a little bit, but it's a little late in the game now. Like I said, not really planning on focusing on that. I'm sure I'll regret that in future games when I never ever find, Garnet Amazons again. Yeah, this fellow. So Ashdod assassinating us. We'll try to mind hunt this guy. He probably has magic resistance gear now, I feel like. Nope, doesn't look like the gear has really changed. So, just doubling down on all the Pokemon items and Creeping Doom. This is on top of one of our armies. We lose a lizard shaman. Well, we're going to lose a lizard shaman. Of course, he's already a leper in all likelihood. I think that's what's happened here. So, it's kind of like, as long as this doesn't cause the communion to collapse, which it might, right? Because, we have communion slaves probably dying, every other turn due to leprosy and old age and etc. So I wouldn't exactly put that in the good news column, but losing a lizard shaman is not the end of the world. I forgot that Xibalba had assassins. I feel like I discovered that earlier this game and didn't know about it, and then managed to re-forget it. So this is going to be a bit rough potentially, but again, I don't think Xibalba has enough for it to matter, but this is going to be an effective assassin. A simple assassin, pretty much relying on lifelong protection, but, a dude in robes, I think he's got a mace, so that's kind of nice. He's, lasting longer than you might expect, but yeah, no surprise, that's how that goes. So a little sad to lose one of those throne mages. I wonder actually if he had, let's just double check, did he have any gear? Ooh, he had some earth boots. That's extra sad. So that's not good. I don't know if those were super critical earth boots. Could be. I think there's a troll king here. Ooh, a harbinger. This we would prefer not to lose. This is a much more important mage. But we do have some great eagles here as bodyguards. They're not like fantastic, really. Air shield, I mean, I guess he does have the poison darts, but like lightning bolt, holy avenger, come on lightning bolt. So we lose the eagles, shockwave, and then okay, the assassin loses his nerve and retreats. So this does work out for us, it looks like. Let's just double check that. Yeah, so we lose some great eagles. That's not ideal, but all things considered, I'll definitely take that. Hopefully we take the fort so we don't have to take any more assassinations. And then there are plenty of battles. So let's see, we get attacked by Ariu somewhere. This is a raid. Not a magic phase. 2 thugs, probably standard kit. Yeah, standard kit on both of them. Definitely pretty heavy, and we've left no province defense, so that's going to work out for them. But, it's not the end of the world to be losing those border provinces. We have enough provinces. It's not, that big of a deal. This is a fairly deep raid, actually, from Asphodel. And, ooh, we do have a defense here, right? This is more of a defense against Ariu, right? We have a fellow to spam out some fire elementals. Hello? Spam out some fire elementals. There we go. His militia's bodyguard, which is less than ideal. I think he has does he have the fire gems? No. He only had enough fire gems for 1 fire elemental, so that's probably gonna be enough. I was gonna say it wasn't gonna be enough, but it turns out fire elemental versus centaur. That works out for us. There might have actually been, no, I think it was just a harpy, so there was no protection being cast, which would have made them more vulnerable to fire. But fire elementals are pretty dangerous, and so yeah, that works out for us. We've seen that kind of defense many times before. If you're a fire nation, that's a pretty standard defense. If you're attacking a fire nation, probably expect that your raiders are going to have to deal with fire elementals. And one of our werewolves actually runs into basically no province defense from Shiniyama for a change, so that should work out for us. Shiniyama, of course, going to be very low on the money at this point. We might actually be sitting, no, we're not sitting on all of their forts, so they're definitely still drawing some income, although I think a lot of the forts that they have left are in Ermor's old lands, which are not going to be generating a ton of money, so they're probably quite low on money. And then we get raided more thugs. Doesn't seem like there's been any upgrade. Yeah, still no fire resistance, so this is definitely, a situation of a player who is also trying to raise a family at the same time and would just like us to hurry up and win this game. So yeah, we should be able to deal with these thugs if we can catch them. But we do lose that province, so we've lost another province that turn. I feel like we should take a look at the graphs. It's been a little while. I know I've threatened to do that a few times, but I can't remember if I've actually followed through on that. So we'll take a look at the graphs this turn. This is our army that's going to help us win the game. This is going to be the one that takes the throne from Ariu, and it's up against Ariu's main army. Well, I don't know if it's their main army. It's a main army, and we're actually kind of outclassed a little bit here, so they should be getting, I think, Army of Gold. In fact, they think they've gotten it off. Well, this, no doubt, is, yeah, there you go, Army of Gold, turn 1. We just have mass protection on this army, and it's just due to a lack of Earth casters. I do think we have an Earth Enchantress running around not too far away, so we'll try to get her boots and fly her out. But otherwise, I'm pretty sure that the magic is going to be on our side. Ariu definitely has some other dangerous casters here, but we far outnumber the number of casters. Yeah, a ton of Pillar of Fire spam is really the main, and then we just a lot of bodyguards, right, to hopefully hold the eagles off. I don't think we have Fog Warriors in this army either, so there's definitely going to be some losses, probably some mage losses as well. But we've just mobilized a ton of the witch hunters that we had in various forts, and then of course, our knights are super dangerous, and so I think it's going to be enough fire magic. That said, Army of Gold is really a pretty good counter in a lot of ways to fire magic. You can see, like, normally these eagles would just be absolutely melting to this amount of fire magic. It's unfortunate that they're choosing Flame Eruption rather than, Pillar of Fire actually deals enough damage to get through. I think it's just that this does like a lot more AoE damage, and it does chip through, so I actually don't know like the over-under on that. Is it better to do like some chip damage to a lot of units, including your own units? Probably better to be doing Pillar of Fire, but hey, the mages, they cast what they want to cast. But I do think this is going to work out. It looks like the eagles have mostly routed. Yeah, those are some of our eagles, probably from a dead mage. Although it does look like we're struggling a little bit with this golem back here. But there's enough HP that we've routed everything else off. Although golems, with their 50 morale, I'm not actually sure how that works with like the army loss morale. So we'll see. He's asleep anyway. And then this Troll King is going to be pretty difficult for us as well. Yeah, Protection 31, not great. Trolls, though, do not like fire, so I don't know if we have anybody set to advance and cast spells, unfortunately. Normally, I'm pretty good about that, but we did kind of throw this army together on short order. Yeah, in fact, we're soul draining some of our own mages, a lot of our own mages, some of whom are fairly expensive. Cap only in there. This lady definitely should have been set to advance and cast spells. In the army deployment screen, she definitely looked farther away than this. Everybody's got like maximum bodyguards, and we had a relatively tight formation because we were pretty worried about the Great Eagles dropping in and killing a bunch of squishy mages. So I think that ended up pushing her a little bit. She might even be on advanced cast spells because backwards. So this is definitely going to be extra painful, and it's like these two fellows back here. So this, we'll see. I was talking about maybe sending this army on a shorter route, and you can see like I don't think we have any great swords of sharpness guys here. Okay, we did manage to get maybe some incinerates there. Okay, we do have an advance and cast spells. Yeah, here we go. Probably, I guess maybe only one. Probably some of the guys that were set to advance and cast spells have since died. I also don't see where our Kokithia. So that was a bit on the painful side. And we may need to stop off at a fort. We may have to take a slightly longer route to collect a few more mages to refresh that army. But we did come away with it in the end. Yeah, so we lose 29 flagellants. That's not too bad. Actually, only one witch hunter, which is kind of shocking. 17 halberdiers, not too relevant. We do lose, about half of our knights, and that definitely hurts. And then like a little bit of our other chaff. That actually was not nearly as painful as I thought it was. On Ariu's side, it's actually kind of not as painful as it might have been in terms of commanders, right? They only lose the Golem. All the other commanders managed to escape. The King of Deeper Earth, we're definitely going to see again. We would have loved to have killed him, but we just didn't have enough mages moving forward. Probably if we had this entire mage corps moving forward, casting fire spells, we would have been able to kill him. But it definitely using fire magic to try to kill this guy is not like the most efficient route. But if you get enough Pillar of Fires, I think it can do the trick. But knocking out all the chaff is fairly important. The most important bit is like half of these Great Eagles. That said, like 24 Great Eagles thereabouts that Ariu still has is enough to crack most forts pretty quickly. So we're going to have to keep an eye on where exactly this reforms, but of course it will get scattered, so we're going to have a few turns. But considering that we're planning on sending this army forward immediately, like away from our own area, like we do have a throne very close to this location, and we do still need to defend that because it's no good taking other thrones if we're then going to lose some of the thrones we already control. So Not the best battle ever, I think, from either side, but I'll take it. You know, the player fatigue is real. That is definitely a part of this game. And then let's see, we have a raid of some sort, fire elementals, Asphodel, of course, defending. Some of this is probably just the free defense, their free spawn, just spawning in, and it's pretty cool that they get these centaur mages as leaders of their PD. That's definitely like a better than average PD cure. Howl, cast by a frog. Okay, sure. Yeah, I mean, that sounds about right for this game. So this is unlikely to work out for us. In fact, I don't even think this guy has a fire gem. This is just, yeah, I think he was diseased. He captured a province next turn, so we sent him forward like, hey, you know, maybe Asphodel won't have a defense, but of course they have a frog that's casting Howl. So that one doesn't work out for us. You know, we do kill a little bit of free spawn, not really relevant. That mage was going to die anyway, so, you know, not the end of the world in terms of losses. This is the province that we're raiding back, that Ariu raided away from us last turn relatively deeply. Yeah, no province defense left here. Do you think we gave this guy a gem? Yeah, plenty of diseased witch hunters that we can be using. So in a lot of ways, you know, I mean, it's like these guys are going to be dying in a couple turns anyway. So that's still not a good thing, but I guess, you know, if like Burden of Time is up and you're getting hit by leprosy and this, that, and the other, it does provide you with a lot of disposable mages. And then we did send someone in, like a scout or somebody, to grab Urmor. This is where our horror attack happened. And then we do catch a battle between Ulm and Asphodel. This is good news, kind of. We don't actually have a non-aggression pact with Ulm, which is definitely important. Looks like, let me guess, these guys are all diseased. Oh yeah. So, you know, we're not the only lepers out there. Plenty of lepers in this world. Anybody who's been attacking Asphodel. Still, these guys are pretty messed up, but they'll probably be able to come away with it. Yeah, there isn't really too much of a defense here. This is relatively close to the throne that we're hoping to snipe from Asphodel, so that is pretty relevant, and is why I was saying that, you know, we don't have a non-aggression pact with Ulm, so at the end of the day, if we end up having to attack Ulm in that location, we're not going to run into any diplomatic issues. We don't need to worry about, hey, we need to end our non-aggression pact with them now, somewhat signal that we're going to be going for a throne rush relatively soon. So that's all in the good news department. That said, Ulm may decide like to, you know, build a fort or magic phase a fort there, so that would be problematic. So we're definitely going to want to keep an eye on that. And that does work out for them, you know, and that's that's the same thing that like we've been going through. That's a nice disposable raiding group. Very kind of Asphodel to be giving us so many of those. They're very generous player. And then here we have some more lepers attacking Nabah, and it looks like Asphodel chose not to hang out. Perhaps there are assassins nearby, and they're planning on assassinating some of our mages. Perhaps they're planning on creating more lepers. I'm sure that there are a bunch of centaur in this fort. We know that. So there's absolutely a defense in here. And just, you know, Asphodel has, you know, holding the exterior of the fort was not part of their plans. We don't need this province. You know, like I said, in a lot of ways, we're just trying to, you know, keep them busy, keep the war going. And, I mean, if we can grab the capital, it's never a bad thing to have more money. You know, you just build more forts in places. I think this might be our throne. Yeah. Our throne that's on the border with Ariu. And this is a super heavy attack as far as, like, thugs. And it looks like these guys are the Great Sword of Sharpness guys, who are probably left over from that war with Asphodel. Yeah, some of them are unkitted. Not that these... this guy's been given an air hat. That's a really expensive item. Sadly, he has no air gems, though. So, but he will be able to cast a lot of Thunderstrike. We do have the wolves. The wolves are just purely patrol chaff. But it is kind of nice that they go in immediately. They might cancel some buff scripts, right? The elves spend some time fighting wolves rather than buffing themselves up. And then, yeah, we're going to spam out hopefully more than just one fire elemental. Yeah, it looks like this guy's really struggling. You know, he definitely gave him quite a few fire gems, I think. That was definitely the plan. That said, these guys don't really have any built-in fire resistance. Let's see, they might have cast, this looks like Elemental Fortitude. So they do have a little bit of fire resistance now and a decent amount of protection as well. So one fire elemental probably not going to be enough, especially against like the amount of lightning damage that we're going to get hit by. But elves are relatively cowardly, and they are definitely hitting themselves with some friendly fire. Yeah, spreading those elves out can be really helpful, because Shockwave is a very dangerous spell for the casters themselves. And definitely highlights, how useful it can be to provide yourself your own like elemental resistance type on your Bless. I'm not actually sure. It's been a while since I myself have ever used Bless. Looks like that guy got missed. Yeah, so there's actually no shock resistance on this Bless, and I think in a lot of ways, the elemental damage type that your nation is best at casting is often the most relevant elemental type. In smaller games, it can depend a lot. It can matter a lot who your opponents are. But especially for a big game like this, where it's like, be facing off against any of the elemental magic types. So, unless you're going to prepare for all of them, you're going to end up leaving some kind of hole. You don't really know what you're going to be up against, but you know that you're going to be casting spells from your own element, and friendly fire, like it happens a lot. The mages are all over the place with their spells, so we're very happy that worked out, although I think Ariu ended up doing a decent amount of the work for us. Interesting. So it looks like we actually lost this battle, so this must be a replay bug, which is pretty unusual. I mean, I'm not that far behind. It has been probably like 2 days-ish, give or take, since this turn rolled. Maybe a few more. So I guess maybe there was a patch. Am I crazy? Yeah, like a fellow retreats here. Our wolves retreat relatively quickly. Just indulge me here for a second, make sure I'm not crazy. Yeah, another guy retreats off. Yeah, so this definitely looks like a replay bug, because we've already seen some of the thugs die, and apparently none of them died. So that could have gone either way. In reality, it went against us. We don't lose too much, and considering that we just knocked out the siege force, the force that's actually going to crack the walls with all those eagles, this is bad, but not that dangerous. I'm not sure how much we have left in the area, but this is close to our capital and a lot of our other forts, so we should be able to spend some of our money to recruit some units up and deal with those thugs. And yeah, I guess there must have been an update, because usually it seems like the replay bugs are tied to game updates. Apparently Dominions recently had an update. And then here we have a heavier raid. Does this guy have a fire gem? Yeah, this guy has a fire gem. Of course, there are harpies. Harpies are dangerous just because they fly and they jump in immediately. We also have a werewolf here, so I think we'll be able to come away with this. But yeah, even though harpies are, pretty awful, just the fact, like, anytime you can have a flying unit, right? Like, yeah, this guy's spending his time punching now, even though he has 5 bodyguards. There's enough of these bird ladies surrounding that, like, yeah, he takes some damage, even though he managed to get body ethereal off. He's probably gonna, yep, there he goes. So, the dangers of raiding with a dude in robes. I think that was even a non-diseased fellow, so that's always a little sad. But like I said, I do think this is going to work out for us because of our werewolf. Werewolves, I've definitely maligned them in the past, but they are much better thug chassis than an old man in robes. So that raid, it looks like, worked out for us. And this is on top of a fort. It's not actually really a fort that we're super interested in taking. This is one of the places we were thinking that we might get Murdering Winter, pretty close to Bandar Log. And then we get raided somewhere by Asphodel. Let's see, yeah, this is relatively close to Nabah, and we did actually leave some province defense here. But that was it. So this is definitely not going to work out for us. I was thinking that Asphodel did not have any raiders in this area, so it was safe to try to put some province defense in there to make sure that the events didn't take the Indies didn't take away our provinces. But of course, Asphodel does have some stealthy units. They definitely still have some Centaur. They probably broke some of this. They probably broke out, from Nabah. So in retrospect, definitely should have been worried about that, thinking about that. I was thinking that they want to concentrate all the Centaur possible to hold that fort, but clearly they felt that they had enough. They could break it out into a raiding force. And this, I think, is just the remnants of some army that's headed over to that throne that we grabbed from Shinyama, and it ran into not very much province defense, which is a bit of a change. I feel like, yeah, I think this one, I think it's actually out of gems, so let's double check if I recall, because I was a little bit worried about this army. Oh no, we still have some fire gems at least, yeah, and some air gems. Okay, so never mind, maybe this is a different army. Well, there's definitely one or two of our armies out there that are a little low on the logistics side of things. We end up not spending gems there, which is always nice. And then we get raided in another place. Yeah, this is another one of the border provinces. He has a lot of their mages around here. Not sure what army this is. I don't even know where these guys came from. I wonder if some of these guys are retreats from that other battle? No, I don't think so. Yeah, I really have no idea who these guys are. We do have an initiate here, right? So the plan was, Pillar of Fire backed by a bit of province defense. And it looks like these guys are set on attack rear, which is interesting. I like that. That's definitely going to cause problems for our mage. Maybe we should set our mages a little farther forward, right? Rather than having them all the way in the back. Normally the back is the safer area, but now he's, going to get targeted down. I don't think he was going to get off too many other Pillar of Fire casts anyway, so, we probably kill a few units here. But that's a bit unfortunate. Yeah, we don't really kill much, so, Pillar of Fire useful, but if you have 40 units that are on attack rear, one initiate is not going to stop them. But this is definitely in the same area where our throne fort got locked down, so we'll see about sending that army out. I do want to try to close this game out, and I feel like even though this is a lot of stuff, not too much of it is super threatening, so we'll probably still send it forward. But like I said, we did kind of empty out a lot of mages to build that army up. So while those forts aren't completely empty, they're reduced. There's fewer mages and definitely fewer units in there than I would prefer. Ooh, this looks like a major thug force from Asphodel. Okay, actually maybe not thugs, possibly going to make a lot of bugs. This is the Prophet. He's been kitted out slightly, just going, for protection. Probably, well, actually, no, it looks like most of these guys can't cast Soul Vortex. This is a ton of Nature Gems and a Nature 5. Lightning Spear, interesting, for the only kit. Man does have quite a few units. I guess mostly Longbowmen, which aren't great. Foul Vapors, of course, that's probably coming, from Asphodel. Man's units are not going to love that, but they do have plenty of Nature Casters, so hopefully, let's see if they've managed to cast Poison Resistance on themselves. Doesn't look like it. So yeah, I don't think this is going to work out for Man. We'll see. Foul Vapors does kill pretty slow. Yeah, and Longbowmen, especially against unprotected units like those guys were. Nice. This actually works out for Man. And it kind of highlights that Foul Vapors is very dangerous, but you do need some time. So Asphodel wasn't able to generate enough chaff. This is actually a fairly big loss for Asphodel. Although we should double check, make sure those guys weren't twice-borned, because if they were twice-born, then not such a big loss. Yeah, no twice-born there. It's pretty expensive. These guys are size 3. Okay, so not incredibly expensive, but definitely not cheap in terms of Death Gem. Yeah, neither of these guys are twice-born. This guy's already undead. So yeah, Asphodel is not getting any of these commanders back, so that is a pretty rough one. And while Longbowmen aren't fantastic, you can see they were taking some damage. It wouldn't surprise me if the Longbowmen actually accounted for some of these kills. It did look like some of the other units managed to get up and deal some damage, but still, Longbowmen actually putting in some decent work pretty late in the game. Man does take a few losses due to Foul Vapors, but yeah, I would be pretty happy with that if I were Man. And then we took control of some province. This is, near where we're fighting Ariu. They chose not to put any province defense there. And then we have more raid against Asphodel. Right, this is the province that we lost. Yeah. And so I think this is the raiding force that just chose to hang out. We may have gotten the commander. I think we might have tried to mind hunt this. No. I take that back. The commander is definitely still here, so this is probably just a diseased guy. No? Oh yeah, no, he's a diseased guy. So we're just throwing a fire elemental at the problem and, hoping that it works out. Fire elementals are not good against Asphodel's chaff. I guess the size 6 units? Man, these carrion beasts, I guess, they have a lot of hit points. And they, the tusks do deal a lot of damage. It's, mundane weapons. So I really thought the body ethereal that's built into the fire elementals would do more. Oh, right. It looks like at least one of them is regenerating. Yeah, and that is a special spell that Asphodel gets. Which is definitely super relevant on these carrion beasts and really makes all their chaff significantly more dangerous. The guys that don't have as much hit points, it's not as relevant. And definitely did not work out for us. We ended up killing nothing. Yeah, none of that was province defense. So that raiding group chose to hang out. We definitely did not commit enough. And then we take a province. Don't actually know where this is. I think it's near Ariu. Ariu seems to be the one that isn't putting province defense everywhere. And then we have an attack against Jabalba. We are 1 mage light, so hopefully he wasn't critical. Xibalba has a lot more in here than I was expecting. This is a proper defense, you know. But I mean, we're sending in everything. Like I said, I felt that this player is definitely worthy of respect. So we're going through the full paces. We do have Army of Gold, so it looks like. Did we have a troll casting that? Here comes the bats. They would be pretty dangerous. Luckily, we were able to get our buffs off pretty quickly. But anyway, we do have Army of Gold somehow, some way. And we have Fog Warriors, you know, kind of all the normal spells. We even have one of our Lamia Queens here spamming out a few skeletons, some Fire Elementals, of course, Knights of the Chalice. This isn't a particularly great assault force. Ooh, Wailing Winds coming from Xibalba. Yeah, this is definitely not in the bag. Wailing Winds could be a problem for us. I'm not sure how much advance and cast spells we have on this army, because I wasn't expecting this much resistance. But this probably is our strongest army right now. Maybe barring the one that we have near Ariu. Yeah, here goes some mages retreating. Ooh, what was that? Doom, maybe? Nope, doesn't look like it was Doom. Or maybe we cast Doom. Our mages do like to do that sometimes if they have extra Astral Pearls. Nope, no curses over there. It's probably something like Rust, some spell that's going to damage equipment, which is a pretty good spell for Xibalba to be casting, because most of their equipment is like obsidian, like non-metals, right? So it doesn't affect them. Obviously, our glorious knights and all their metal equipment, they do not love that spell. And then a bunch of undead getting spammed out, which is an excellent way to defend a fort, especially when combined with Wailing Winds, because you know the longer that it goes on, the better that is for Wailing Winds, the more likely that it is that the enemy is going to retreat. And even if we do win this battle, this is going to be extremely annoying to collect all these units, and it's kind of looking like it's not going to work out for us. So yeah, we can probably add mass flight to this army. Which is going to be the play, I think, and because we just need to get back in there. We need to finish the battle quickly, so that Wailing Winds doesn't have as much time, and so we can get around the Skelly spam, and also just jump on top of the mages like before they can generate all the Skelly spam. So this is looking like it is not going to work out for us. This is going to be a painful loss, absolutely. And yeah, I mean that's why we sent a bunch of stuff. The only saving grace is that a lot of our losses are due to Wailing Winds, right? So we have a bunch of retreats. So we do lose some units. The Knights of the Chalice are fairly painful. But we actually lose none of our mages somehow, which I'm kind of shocked by. I was expecting like at least some of the mages to be fatigued out and for them to get caught, in the retreat and killed. And then in terms of losses that we inflict on Xibalba, we at least wipe out most of the chaff, but there's still a relevant number of mages left. We do get some important ones, right? I think this is a cap only. Yeah, very expensive, so going to be difficult or impossible to replace. We hopefully left someone holding the fort down, but I do not remember, and it's entirely possible that we're going to have to re-crack Xibalba. But we do at least knock out these Banes, and this looks like a hero, so it's not like we do nothing, but considering what we invested, very sad result. And again, just highlights like Skelly Spam is an excellent way to hold a fort, and when you combine it with Wailing Winds, which is an excellent spell anyway, the Skelly Spam just gets even worse. So we'll have to take a look and see if I left anybody holding it. So here's another storm. Also, a relatively lazy storm. We're up against a monolith here. I have a feeling that this one is also going to fail because we don't really have anything specifically set up to kill a monolith. We definitely had anti-super combatant elements in these armies at one point, but I don't know if they're still alive. Right? They might be lepers. They may have died as lepers some turns ago. Also, like cold resistance, not really something that we have built into the army. We might have it on the Bless. Yeah, we've got 5 cold resistance on the Bless at least, so that's going to help, but these Ice Drakes can be really, really dangerous. There's also Skelly Spam here, so I think just purely from a Skelly Spam standpoint, I'm not sure we're going to be able to come away with this. I really think Mass Flight, I think, is going to be the easiest way, again, to deal with this situation. And, the problem is we don't have a ton of air mages. So, when we're running so many different armies, I'm it's pretty painful to add another air mage into an army to cast Mass Flight, and I'm not actually sure. Probably is easier to cast, or about the same to cast as Fog Warriors, but we do... Oh boy, here it goes. I'm not actually sure. That could be from Shinyama. It might be from us. We definitely, we have some of those throne mages that can cast that. We do have some advanced and cast spells, so it's not impossible that this is gonna, not work out for us. Like, we may still take this fort, but I am pretty concerned about us not being able to kill that monolith. But anyway, Mass Flight would help us a lot in this situation. We just run the risk of burning out the communion. We always run that risk, right? Because the communions that we have set up are a little on the janky side. We just give some crystals to some initiates and let them experience the wonders of air magic for 5 rounds and hope that it doesn't destroy their mind completely, or at least doesn't destroy their body completely. So if we add Mass Flight on top of that, pretty good chance that the initiates can't handle that. So there's definitely less skelly spam here, I think, than in Jabalba. Also, crucially, there's no Wailing Winds at play, and I think that's, nationally, Shinyama does not have the Air Death cross path, so this is a matter of... Ooh, is this a Dione? Yeah, this is a Dione. I think they're a summon for Shinyama. That's cool. So, normally you see those a lot more in early age. This guy could definitely be a problem for us, because, again, not super well set up. There's a Paladin up here. We do have Great Swords of Sharpness. We have Weapons of Sharpness, so our guys are going to be doing more damage. Yeah, and here's a Great Sword of Sharpness. So we have a chance. We definitely have a chance. Come on, guys. You can get through the gap. But anyway, Mass Flight would make this significantly less painful. Probably worth burning out a couple initiates. We'll just have to remember... we really got to stop dropping rocks on ourselves. Alright, so we do manage to make it through the gap. We do... drop some more rocks on ourselves. Not really sure why our Harbinger is back here. I don't think she's set to attack. She might be set to advance and cast spells, I suppose. That's a bit of a mistake, if so. She's choosing to cast Confusion. That's sad. This guy must have a lot of shock resistance. Nope, he only has 5 shock resistance, so I don't know why Confusion over Lightning Bolt. Lightning Bolt, okay, the Gifts from Heaven is coming from the Monolith, so, yeah, that's going to be pretty rough. Fortunately, it looks like our Greatsword of Sharpness guy has not been able to make contact. This is also an army that still has a, the Imp Generator item, and that's pretty dangerous in a situation like this. I hesitate to say luckily. Yeah, so there's a Soul Slay that finally makes its way through, but the Gifts of Heaven at least would, continually open up spaces for things that are not imps to fill into. So also a pretty painful storm for us. This one also looks like it was hit pretty badly by the replay bug. We do, the result is at least the same. That's nice. But these losses look way too low compared to the battle that I just watched. So I'm assuming that we just rolled a lot luckier, right? We have this Shadow Seer here with 1 kill. So maybe he just soul slayed the monolith immediately during the combat. Or, possibly our Troll King advanced and cast spells and got a Petrify in on it relatively early. But yeah, this definitely could have gone a lot more painfully for us, if, based on that replay that we just watched. So happy that the replay bug worked out in our favor this time. Also, I've never seen these names before. I don't think these are the official names. Oh no. So I've seen similar horse-headed units that have different names, but apparently this is officially a horse phase. So anyway, unfortunate that we're getting so many of these replay bugs, but like I said, it is nice, at least for me, that it worked out in our favor this time, because that was looking pretty painful. Speaking of painful, we get some lightning, we lose a friar, 22 units wounded, 14 killed. Again, we're not deep in Asphodel's Dominion, so that's less painful for us. But of course, old age, we don't love that. No one dies at least this turn, at least of our commanders, so that's nice. Then we have some unexpected events. Monster Boar, classic. I wonder if this is Asphodel. This is a spell that you can cast. They probably have better things to do with their nature gems, but Monster Boars are super annoying to get rid of. Then again, plenty of them show up due to events. Speaking of annoying, False Prophet. We have a lot of guys that we kind of need to patrol out now. We probably will never get to. And then, yeah, the harsh law against vagrancy, that is more or less irrelevant. We managed to patrol out a flagrant scout, also not super relevant. We left some units on top of Xibalba to keep it locked down, thank heavens. Not sure we're going to be able to stop a breakout attempt, considering that, our army is going to be super scattered. But we are going to try to keep this locked down and probably bring in some more air mages for, mass flight. It's not strictly necessary that we take Xibalba. But they are very close to a number of throne provinces, and I am expecting Yis to attack relatively soon, and this location is pretty close to Yis's capital. So if Yis does attack, this will probably be this area will be one of the locations that we have to fight Yis. And I would prefer to not also have to deal with Xibalba like raiding us and assassinating us. So I do really want to get rid of Xibalba. I think that is going to make our life easier in the long term, but in the short term, it does mean we actually have to take it. And then we're holding down a couple of other forts, just with raiders. And then we have breached Tianqi. We are destroying the fort in Naba. You can see that's only moderately damaged. This army is a little on the smaller side, but this is also indicative of the fact that there are quite a few centaur in there. So it's a pretty serious army in there. It's entirely possible that Asphodel will storm, or at least start to mess with us in a similar way like the earthquake trap that we saw against Man. We're going to be relatively vulnerable to that as well with this army. Bone grinding. We're not going to love that. So there's a pretty good chance that this army dies, but it at least, again, keeps Asphodel tied up. And a lot of these units are diseased and dying anyway, so, it's kind of use them or lose them. We do have plenty of forts at this point to recruit replacements with. And then we are under siege, and this is our throne fortification, and our walls are damaged, which is a little surprising. We do have very few units in here, and I wonder if some Great Eagles retreated to this province, possibly. I'll have to take a look. So we might actually be in more danger in this location than I realized. This is where that thug force this is where the replay bug betrayed us. And then, of course, plenty of patrollers. And I'll catch you guys after the cut. All right, this is the situation and what we're doing about it. A couple of big things this turn. We're going to try to reconstitute our army here on top of Xibalba, which is pretty risky because our gem reload is hanging out on top of Xibalba and can't actually reload most of the mages that have retreated. So, while a lot of this army did survive the assault, and we do have a bunch of skeletons that we didn't have any leadership for that are still on top of the fort. This is going to be a relatively weak force that's not going to have, a ton of battlefield-wide magic support that it would normally have. So if Xibalba chooses to come out, there's definitely some danger. However, they don't really have much chaff left, and we are going to go ahead and Cloud Trapeze in a couple of mages here, mostly to just summon in air elementals. So I'm hoping the fact that, we'll have significantly more chaff than Xibalba if they choose to come out. We'll be able to overwhelm their mages along with the air elementals, hopefully wreaking a lot of havoc, preventing perhaps a Wailing Winds casts or bringing it down. So we'll see about that. I mean, the other option is to, try to collect the pieces in our own territory, but that would give Xibalba a chance, to break out. They'd definitely be able to break out if only the skeletons were hanging out there. And it would slow things down, and, Yis might decide to come in, and the sooner we can solve this situation, the better. So we're going to risk it, to try to be speedy. You see, I actually missed Yis's capital. Kind of shows my state of mind when doing the last turn. I think we have, we're going to do a cast on top of Yis's capital properly this turn. We can't see the sacreds, but we can at least see, what kind of summons they're building up, some of the mage levels, things like that. Of course, we are still pretty worried about Yis coming in, but we're continuing to do our recruitment and summoning along those borders. So hopefully that'll keep them contained. Our force in Bandar also will help us out. If Asphodel chooses to push pretty hard. Related to Asphodel, we're going to try a switcheroo. So we're going to take this army, move off of Nabah, and then crack this fort. Maybe take this fort. I am expecting there potentially to be, some sort of response here, maybe from their Pretender, Earthquake Trap, Bone Grinding, things like that we've seen. So we're going to move the army off, and we're going to move our super combatant in. We'll see about this guy's kit in a lot of ways. This isn't a particularly great weapon against, a lot of chaff, but we will have Soul Vortex up, which will help us out against the living chaff. We do know that there's a lot of centaur there. There's definitely a lot of danger that this guy gets put to sleep by a bunch of mannequins. And actually, now that I'm thinking about this, the mannequins have a relatively short range attack, if I'm recalling correctly. But you can't repel them because they're undead, so they always pass the morale check. So definitely switching out this Ring of the Warrior probably would have been a good choice, but not one that we can make now. At minimum, this guy should be able to deal fairly effectively with any kind of anti-army response that Asphodel is planning. We definitely have a few mind hunts going off. I think we're going to try to get the assassin that's here. We're going to leave these guys in place to hopefully block these mannequins from moving forward. We're moving some guys out to block some raiding. Really just trying to block Asphodel's raiding, not really even worrying about trying to recapture territory. A lot of this is like cut off. We have a lot of gem income, so it's not super critical that we recapture this territory quickly. We're mostly going to leave this army in place, partially to cover this throne once we take it, and maybe also take the throne if our super combatant fails. We are breaking a few elements out as like anti-raiders. We're also pulling out, this is another one that got hit with leprosy, so we're pulling out a ton of the diseased units, as well as our well, I guess he's still our prophet, but of course, he's not a Holy Three, so significantly less useful now. So we're going to send these disease guys to join, our leprosy army, which will hopefully crack and take this fort in the not-too-distant future, and then we'll probably push it forward into Asphodel's territory, because it's still somewhat dangerous, but it's also completely expendable. We are going to try to storm Tianchi this turn. Haven't really changed up the plan. Definitely some danger here, right? There's, a decent amount of stuff, and, we saw how this storm went pretty well for us, but with the replay bug, we saw an alternate history, if you will, an alternate universe where things didn't go so hot. And there's a lot of similar units in here, and of course, there's a lot of similarities with our own army, so, we'll see. It's definitely not strictly necessary that we take Tianchi, but there is definitely enough stuff in here that if we move off and let it out, it could deal a lot of raiding damage. Worst case scenario, we do have other forces that we could bring in if it all goes wrong, so it's somewhat of a risk and not necessarily a risk that we have to take, but I think it's worth it. We're also hoping that the Holy Three survives, because I am planning on using this guy, and unfortunately this is one of the guys that has no gear. So yeah, we are going to be casting Arrow Fen, but completely possible this guy gets sniped by an arrow. Luckily, this throne isn't that far from our capital, and we are recruiting Holy Three this turn, though we're planning on sending this Holy Three to the north to claim this throne that, Arayu is more or less guarding, though technically Agartha has it. But if we do lose the Holy Three in this storm, we'll probably switch up our recruitment next turn. More Grandmasters would be nice, but we don't strictly need them. We have plenty of mages from other sources, so we can switch over just completely to Holy Threes to make sure that we have enough to do our simultaneous claims. Speaking of thrones and claims, as I suspected, some of the great eagles from that battle retreated on top of our throne fortification. Luckily, it is a citadel, so we still have a decent amount of wall integrity, but you can see that Great Eagles, that was a lot of Great Eagles, so even just a chunk of them is breaking it down pretty quickly. We also don't have, a ton of units inside of here, so we don't have all that much in the way of siege defense. We are breaking out, although we're not bringing everything. We're pretty much relying on bugs and Pillar of Fire, as well as potentially some gifts from heaven. We have a few mages out here. There's a good chance that the eagles will be unled, in which case they're going to jump in immediately. So we're hoping to spread the great eagles some by having a few mages out here. And then this box is hopefully going to be surrounded very quickly by bugs, which will make lucky. And then, we'll be dropping rocks and hitting eagles as well as our own bugs, but we don't mind losing bugs and they'll be lucky, so less likely to die. And then, just mixing in a decent amount of Pillar of Fire for good measure. It's definitely possible that this fails, but there's not a ton here. It can't get reinforced. Yeah, so it's not going to get reinforced. There's not a ton here. I didn't want to commit everything. We're also going to try some assassinating here, which we'll see assassinating elves even with a bottle of water, with a regular human assassin is a bit on the risky side. But we're going to give it a shot. Definitely should think about potentially, some minor upgrades to these guys' gear, maybe giving them an amulet of luck or something like that, just to make it less likely that the assassin dies while the water elemental is doing its work, because the elves could certainly, cast a lightning bolt. They'll probably go after the water elemental, but they might hit the assassin. Also moving out, some of our counter-raiding forces to try to recapture, some of these provinces and destroy elements of, that army that retreated from Eriu. Definitely some of it retreated into its own territory, although I don't recall the Wraith Lord. So that might be reinforcements. In the bad news department, we moved one of our friars on top of this fort who has spirit sight, and there are a ton of elves here. So while Eriu has deployed, a lot of their elven commanders and elven thugs, they still have quite a few in reserve, as well as, pretty much a full spread of elemental royalty here. So this is a pretty scary army, and there's, a good amount of units in it as well. And I'm less confident now in this army's ability to, push through and be able to take this throne. So I am starting to think, especially since this is unforted, maybe we should increase our timetable. I mean, I do still want to get our stealthy units through, but of course, once forts go up on top of these thrones, our life becomes much more difficult, and we still do have a few turns before our stealthy elements actually arrive. Yeah, I'm starting to rethink this plan. We don't really have the pearls for it right now, and we don't have a ton of magic phase attack options. Yeah, it just feels a little weird, using some relatively weak magic phase attacks against these thrones, but they are almost undefended. So that might actually have been the better option. We're not going with it this turn. We can see that this Almish force, is moving here. I mean, we do have eyes on this, and we should be informed if a fortification starts. So if we see a fortification starting, there's a good chance that we're gonna, push our timetable forward and just, try to go for magic phase attacks, whatever we can, get on it, and then try to, hopefully, if we win, magic phase the forts in. So for now, we're going to try to keep more or less the same timetable, but there is kind of a question mark now about whether this army can pull this off, and we might just move our army nearby, maybe even force a battle, maybe not force a battle, but encourage a battle, because Eriu may feel confident enough to attack us with this, and even if we lose this battle, if we draw potential defenders away from this throne, that's going to be helpful for us. So basically, we may just not even need this army in order to jump on top of here, right? Because there's almost no PD here. Even our werewolf attack could probably take this province, and we can throw a few other magic phase attacks at it. So we may just want to try to save up some astral pearls, even maybe alchemize some other gem types in order to be able to cast the spell that's going to get us an Archangel, because of course, if we get a Holy 3 on there as part of a magic phase attack, they'll be able to claim the very next turn. So while that feels very weird and risky to me, and I don't really have a lot of experience even witnessing throne rushes, but I'm pretty sure the way that it's going to work out, if we do that, we could potentially be successful. We're going to focus on getting a Holy 3 on top of this throne, because we have not claimed it yet. So we're going to need to claim this throne, and then of course we need to deal with the Watchers and the Monolith on top of this throne. We'll probably send our super combatant in next turn to clear this out. We do have a Holy 3 ready there. And, then once we're set up on those two thrones, we may actually preempt, our previous plans with magic phase attacks. So that covers the majority of it. Of course, there's a bunch of raids and stuff going around. We are converting a bunch of fire gems. We're using our pretender to get a bunch of money. Yeah, this is, questionable, but it's the point of the build. We haven't done it in a while. We just managed to get Eternal Pyre up. We were sitting on quite a few fire gems. I'm going for it. We definitely need our pretender to forge us another earth booster, I think. Our pretender does have high enough earth that he only needs earth boots. You need earth 4 in order to magic phase the forts in. So we're going to need either our pretender or an additional booster in order to have 2 mages available to magic phase a fort in here and a magic phase a fort in here. We're also not too far off the 100 earth gems that we're going to need, so we're going to try to maintain 100 earth gems or more so that we can pull that off. We're going to have probably this fellow here who hopefully will not die of old age in the meantime. Luckily, we are close to the source of these mages, and they can, teleport around. So anyway, this guy needs 2 boosters, one of which we don't have yet, so our pretender is the only one that can forge that. So next turn, our pretender will be forging that, so that we'll, have the magic phase forts, the mages ready to cast those spells. Good to go. And then we are moving out a lot of our forces here. We're actually going to just try to reinforce this throne, because there's definitely a chance that Ulm, tries to come in and take this from us, especially if we, go for a throne rush and fail. They'll probably be on the defensive for a few turns if that's the case. Also of note, Phlegra has been set to AI, which I think is fair. They've definitely had a couple of stales in the last few turns. And so we probably will end up needing to deal with this, and we may actually have to give up ground here because I'm not sure that this army is going to be able to deal with this. We've kind of pulled some of these elements out, pulled items off of them, and etc. So this will probably need a little bit of reinforcing, and we'll see. It'll probably can hold the fortification because it's going to be very difficult to push all this garbage through the gap, and the AI is not particularly genius. But anyway, the Phlegra is probably going to get a lot more active in the coming turns and is going to rampage a little bit around our territory. The AI also does, in my experience, seem to really prioritize trying to capture throne provinces. So it's entirely possible, right, that this force just immediately goes after this throne, which is part of why we're transferring these forces. We'll also have to keep an eye on them once we take this province, because they may also go after this. So yeah, I think that more or less covers turn 75.